5:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. New Hampshire Primary Day. Dan Mann is here, back live from the studios on Music Row. And man, it is a really big news day. I want to play for you this piece of audio because I think that it is, number one, Donald Trump once again telling the truth, but also a very dire warning. Listen to this. Listen very closely.
And every week we go up and up and up. And somebody said, don't indict him anymore. Please, you're killing us. You're going to indict him right into the White House. We don't want to have that. Mm-hmm. No, it's terrible. I mean, we get treated terribly. It's unbelievable. And, you know, that's a two-way street. That can happen to them also. It's a very dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous precedent that they are setting.
Now, you heard what the former president, possibly future president, said. It's a two-way street. Now, we know that Donald Trump has been indicted over and over and over again. He keeps talking about how he's been indicted more than Al Capone. I'll spare you that audio. But here's the thing. On this New Hampshire primary day, the president is absolutely right. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there's a lot of pundits out there that are basically saying the same thing, that the more that the former president is indicted, the more it looks like his support is becoming, frankly, unwavering. And that is true because the couple of things are going on. Number one is the more that the American people find out about these indictments, the more the American people find out about, for example, what is going on in Fulton County and Fannie Willis, the more they're realizing that Donald Trump is right about these prosecutors and how they are incredibly corrupt. And this is all part of the witch hunt. Now, Brit Hume, of course, this is a guy who is very much of he's not necessarily what I would say Trump friendly. Let's just put it that way. Brit Hume has always been just a straight on political analyst. He's not necessarily somebody that I would call on Donald Trump's side. He's kind of like, you know, for me, an Alan Dershowitz or maybe, you know, some of these other folks that are really just not necessarily Donald Trump supporters, but they just like to call it like they see it. Kind of like Jonathan Turley as well. Well, Brit Hume, of course, on Fox News. You remember yesterday when I was talking about how you have all of these people that are out there discussing about Ron DeSantis and where DeSantis went wrong with his campaign. And I talked about, well, you can discuss everything that went wrong within DeSantis's campaign, but can we also be honest and talk about how strong of a candidate Donald Trump is? And at this time, yesterday morning, I was talking about how everybody's discussing DeSantis' weakness. Nobody wants to talk about the strength of Donald Trump. Well, here's what Brit Hume had to say, and he and I agree.
I think that all of that had very little to do with the outcome. I think the outcome came down to one thing, and that is that there is a reservoir of voters in the Republican Party who were going to vote for Donald Trump if they had the chance. It was obscured by polling for about a year ago that suggested that he could be beaten and that Ron DeSantis could beat him. But once he got indicted on a sketchy indictment in New York,
there you go.
The sentiment for him woke up, and I don't think that either he or really any DeSantis or any other candidate ever really had a chance against that. These Republicans want this man, and they're voting for him.
So former President Trump should send a gift basket to Alvin Bragg.
He could.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Alvin Bragg, Fannie Willis, I mean, I could go on, Jack Smith as well. And they're talking about, specifically in that segment, they were talking about a number of things, but Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, this is the hush money case where Donald Trump faces 34 charges related to the supposed money paid to Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about that alleged affair that they supposedly had. Even liberals and Trump-hating Republicans say this case is dubious at best. Now, remember, this case has issues, and here's just a few of them. Why was it suddenly revived after it was basically considered a dead issue? Oh, yeah, because Donald Trump is running for president. Why are they charging Trump with felonies when in reality this is, as many legal experts say, just a, quote, falsification of business records that Alvin Bragg has now elevated? And the fact that this suit was filed 6 years after in legalese, the core underlying conduct, as they say in legalese, had happened. So when you look at all of this and you think, okay, so let's figure out why it is from a legal standpoint that they're bringing this up now against Donald Trump. And again, it's because he is ultimately running for president again, and they will, as you know, stop at nothing. I mean, look at all of these, just look at it in totality. All of these legal cases against Donald Trump. You do have the Letitia James, right? The attorney general in New York, where she is trying to destroy literally his ability to do business in New York, where he built a multi-million billion-dollar business. She claims, of course, as you know, that he inflated his business value in New York and his property in Mar-a-Lago, which has almost been universally considered a joke. But that is the Letitia James case, the attorney general in New York. You do have the Georgia case, which I've been covering for you quite a bit. And we spoke about this. I think it was yesterday. I know it was a big conversation last week, where now the Georgia case has ended up exposing the corruption of the Fulton County DA's office. You have the classified documents case, which looks really bad now because Biden did the same thing as Donald Trump, but they're now going after Joe Biden, only Donald Trump. And now in the news in the last couple of days, did you see this? The one of the more high-profile attorneys for President Trump, former President Trump, a guy by the name of Joe Tacopina, has now left Donald Trump's New York legal team, and he's going out swinging. I'm going to play you his audio, but what's more important than what Joe Tacopina says, it is where he is saying it. And does this spell doom for the former president now that he's lost one of the major defenders from his legal team and what he is saying now? Kind of doing a kind of once over on a lot of the various allegations, court cases, indictments, and charges against Donald Trump on this New Hampshire primary day. And are they really doing what the Democrats are hoping that it'll do, which is destroy Donald Trump's path to the presidency? Well, Joe Tacopina is a guy who was a former President Donald Trump's staunchest allies and defenders, and now he has left the legal team of Donald Trump. Now, he was involved in the New York cases against Trump, and he was very media friendly. He was always out there talking to the media, staunchly defending Donald Trump, and now he is out. He has left the New York legal team, and this is what he said. Now, here's what's important. He is saying this. He chose to tell his story on MSNBC with Al Sharpton.
I left the team because it was just my time. There were things that just didn't work out for me, that didn't make me want to continue in that role. I had to follow my compass, and my compass told me it was my time there was done.
Well, here's the problem. Here's what really happened with Joe Tacopina, is that he wasn't getting along, it would appear, with the rest of the legal team. And they found that he was a bit of a blowhard, and he was just, it wasn't working out. There was a clash of personalities. And so now he has decided to go on, frankly, the enemy's network for Donald Trump, which is MSNBC, and say things that I would say are inflammatory to, of all people, Al Sharpton. So clearly he's got an axe to grind.
The Manhattan DA's case that I was on, I don't think that's a strong case. There's other cases. There's Georgia, there's Washington, D.C.
You think some of them are strong cases?
Those are serious cases. The two federal cases are serious cases. And I think they're not to be taken lightly.
Is it possible Donald Trump could end up convicted of one of these cases in your mind?
Oh, is it possible? Absolutely.
Yeah, that is the line that is getting a lot of attention this morning, is that he is saying that it is possible that Donald Trump could be convicted. But I want you to think about this, because you always have to put these comments in its proper context, because you're talking about cases in very corrupt and very anti-Trump districts in, for example, places like Georgia, places like Manhattan, federally, of course, as well, where you have judges and juries that hate Donald Trump as much as these prosecutors do. And so, yeah, I said that we did a remote somewhere at some point. I don't remember where it was or when it was, but I said basically the same thing as Joe Tacopina, which is, oh, absolutely, I could see Donald Trump being convicted. Now, that doesn't mean that he's actually done anything wrong. It means that the anti-Trump people in those districts, the juries, hate Donald Trump. And they'll convict him regardless as to whether or not the evidence actually points to him having done anything wrong. It's like the DAs and it's also like the judges. That's the point, is that, yeah, I could see Donald Trump being convicted, but the whole system is corrupt. Oh, and don't forget about I'm still baffled by this one. The E. Jean Carroll case, where Donald Trump is accused of defaming E. Jean Carroll. Now, I want someone to explain this to me, where she puts in a book, like decades after the supposed assault, where she publicly accuses him of raping her in a department store dressing room. And he says, basically, no, she's not my type. And that is defaming her. And now this is going through the courts. That's going on right now. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Where he is publicly accused of rape and then he defends himself and now she's suing him for defaming her. It is absolutely insane. And so you've got all of these cases that are out there, and the surface level opinion of the left is, oh, look at all of these indictments, 94 charges or whatever. You look at MSNBC, you watch CNN, you watch some of the network anchors on NBC, CBS, and ABC and so forth. And they say, well, despite the fact that the former president has 94 charges against him and 4 indictments in all of these cases, Republicans are still supporting the former president. Well, you know why that is? That's because people who don't have the capacity or the desire to look deeply into these various cases or really think about it cognitively, where you have a Justice Department and you have all of these corrupt DAs and judges going after the former president, not to mention these cities, these districts where they have juries that are deeply anti-Donald Trump. The American people know what's going on. Certainly Republicans know what's going on. I thought this was a really interesting interview. Newt Gingrich was on with Sean Hannity last night, and he talked about this at length, and it's a really intriguing interview.
And a woman came up to me, African-American, works at the store. She said, you know, I'm not quite sure I'm for Trump, but I hate what they're doing to him. And I think it's really unfair, and it really bothers me. And I think that's true of almost every American.
Absolutely. The American people are really fed up with Biden's Justice Department. Let's also not forget that there is a connection between the White House and some of these lawsuits and some of these indictments that are going on in states, like, for example, in Georgia, in Fulton County, because part of the whole corruption situation with Fannie Willis in Fulton County is that, not to mention, of course, that she hired her boyfriend $650,000. They took trips together and so forth. But also part of that conversation is that they had meetings with the White House. They had meetings. The Fulton County prosecutors going after Donald Trump also had meetings at the White House with White House counsel, 16 hours worth. And so that tells me, and that tells the American people, that yes, there is coordination between the White House and these local prosecutors, regardless as to what Karine Jean-Pierre and the Biden administration says.